The encounter in the cold. The night was darker than usual on the frozen frontier world. The sky was filled with heavy clouds, hiding the moons. The ground was covered in endless sheets of ice, and the cold wind cut through the air like knives. Captain Daniel pulled his cloak tighter, his boots crunching against the frozen snow as he patrolled the wasteland. He was a soldier, trained to survive in harsh places, but even he felt the biting cold deep in his bones. His mission was simple: scout the area for any signs of movement. Rumors had spread that alien survivors were still wandering in these ruins. Most soldiers believed the stories were lies, or worse, traps. But Daniel had seen things others refused to admit. He knew war left behind broken people, not just broken cities. As he moved past the remains of an old structure, his visor caught a faint heat signature. At first, he thought it might be an animal, but then he heard it. A weak, trembling voice carried by the wind. "Please, warmth." Daniel froze. His hand moved to his weapon by instinct. His training told him to be cautious. No one should be out here, not in this deathly cold. Yet the sound was unmistakable. It was not the growl of a beast. It was a voice, soft and desperate. He stepped closer, his boots sinking into the snow. Beneath the shadow of a collapsed wall, he found her, an alien girl, lying curled up, her body shivering uncontrollably. Her skin glowed faintly, a pale silver blue under the moonlight, her eyes half open, glowing dimly with violet light. She looked weak, barely holding on to life. Daniel's first thought was to call it in. His squad would come, and they would take her away. Protocol was clear. Aliens like her were enemies, threats to be captured or eliminated. But then she looked at him, her lips trembling, her breath forming fragile clouds in the icy air. "Please," she whispered again, her voice breaking, "share your warmth." For a moment, Daniel did not move. He could almost hear his commander's voice in his head. "Do not trust them. They are dangerous. They will deceive you." Yet what he saw was not a soldier, not an enemy. It was just a girl, weak, cold, and terrified. His heart pounded. He knew what this choice meant. If he helped her, he risked everything: his duty, his safety, even his life. But if he walked away, she would not survive the night. He lowered his weapon slowly. His cloak was heavy, thick enough to shield against the wind. Without a second thought, he unclasped it and wrapped it around her trembling body. She gasped softly, surprised. Her small hands clutched the fabric as though it was the last piece of hope left in her world. Daniel lifted her carefully. She was lighter than he expected, as if she had not eaten for days. Her head rested against his chest, her breath shallow and uneven. For a moment, he looked around the frozen ruins, making sure no one was watching. Every step back to his shelter felt heavier. The voice of caution echoed in his mind. "If they find out, you will pay for this." Yet another voice pushed back. "If you leave her, she will die here alone." The storm grew harsher as he walked. The wind howled like angry spirits. But Daniel kept moving, carrying the fragile life in his arms. At last, he reached his outpost, a small shelter half buried in snow and metal debris. He pushed the door open, stepping inside. The warmth of the heater filled the room, chasing away the deadly chill. He laid her down gently on the cot. Her skin was still icy cold, her breathing shallow. He pulled the blanket over her, then lit a small fire in the metal container nearby. The flickering glow filled the room, casting soft light across her pale face. For a long moment, Daniel simply stood there, watching her. Who was she? What had happened to her people? And why was she alone in a place where no one should have survived? Her eyes fluttered open slightly. She looked at him, her voice almost too soft to hear. "You human?" Daniel nodded, his voice firm but calm. "Yes." Her lips trembled again. "Thank you, human." Then her eyes closed, and she drifted into unconsciousness, her breathing steady but fragile. Daniel sat down, running a hand over his face. He had made his choice. There was no turning back now. Outside, the storm raged across the frozen wasteland, but inside, a small flame burned, of warmth, of hope, and perhaps of something greater than survival. A stranger's choice. Daniel did not sleep that night. The storm outside howled like a monster, rattling the metal walls of his shelter. Inside, the alien girl lay motionless under the heavy blanket. Her faint breath showed she was alive, but only just. He sat near the fire, his weapon across his knees. His mind battled with voices. You should report this. You are a soldier, not a savior. Yet another voice, softer but stronger, whispered back. She asked for warmth, not war. Hours passed slowly. In the early hours of dawn, he heard her stir. Her glowing violet eyes opened slightly. She tried to rise, but her weak body betrayed her. Daniel helped her sit up, holding a cup of steaming broth to her lips. She sipped carefully, her hands trembling. For the first time, he saw her clearly. Her skin was pale silver, marked with faint glowing lines, almost like rivers of light under her skin. Her hair shimmered faintly, like threads of moonlight. She was unlike any being he had seen before. What is your name? Daniel asked, his voice quiet. Liara, she whispered, her voice still weak, but steady enough to carry meaning. Daniel nodded slowly. He wanted to ask more, but his communicator beeped suddenly. The sharp sound cut through the quiet like a blade. His squad was checking in. Captain Daniel, report your status. The voice of Sergeant Cole demanded. Daniel froze. His eyes shifted to Liara. She looked terrified, pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders. If he spoke the truth, they would come. They would take her away. She would not survive their cruelty. He knew his squad. They followed orders, not mercy. He pressed the comm device. All clear, he said firmly. No movement in the area. Returning to base soon. There was silence for a second, then the reply came. Copy that. Stay sharp. Out. Daniel placed the communicator aside. His hands shook slightly. He had just lied to his own men. If they ever found out, he would face charges of treason. Yet when he looked at Liara, he felt no regret. She met his eyes, her own wide with disbelief. You protect me? Daniel nodded. For now, he said quietly. But I need answers. Why were you out there? Why alone? Her gaze dropped. Her voice trembled as she spoke. My people. Gone. Soldiers came, burning everything. They said humans wanted our land, our crystals. They took many, killed others. I escaped. But cold almost took me. Daniel's chest tightened. His commanders had told them the aliens here were hostile, that war was necessary to secure resources. But Liara's broken words painted a different picture. Was it possible his own side had done this? Before he could ask more, a faint alarm blinked on his console. Motion sensors. Something was moving outside the shelter. Daniel's heart raced. He grabbed his rifle and moved to the door, peering through a small crack. In the distance, through the snow, he saw figures, human soldiers, sweeping the area. They were close, too close. He turned back to Liara. Stay silent, he whispered firmly. She nodded, her fear clear in her glowing eyes. She pulled the blanket over her head, trying to hide her shimmering skin. The soldiers' voices carried through the storm. Tracks this way, looks fresh. Daniel cursed under his breath. They must have found the trail from when he carried her last night. His mind raced. If they came inside, it would all be over. He stepped outside, closing the door behind him. Snow whipped against his face. Sergeant Cole spotted him at once. Daniel, Cole called, trudging over. We picked up something. Tracks leading right to your post. You see anything? Daniel forced a calm expression, shaking his head. No one here, just me. Cole narrowed his eyes. He looked around the area, then back at Daniel. Strange. Looked like someone carried weight. Small steps, not human. Daniel's heart pounded, but he stood firm. Storm plays tricks, you know that, he said coldly. If there was anything, I'd have handled it. Cole studied him for a long moment, then finally grunted. Fine, but stay alert. If something's hiding out here, command wants it caught. The squad moved on, their figures vanishing back into the storm. Daniel exhaled slowly, his hands clenched around his rifle. That was too close. When he stepped back inside, Liara's eyes were wide. They would have taken me, she whispered. Daniel nodded. Removing his cloak, his jaw tightened. He had just crossed a line. He was no longer just a soldier on duty. He was a man protecting a life his own people wanted to erase. He sat down by the fire again, looking at her. From now on, you stay hidden, understand? Liara nodded quickly. Her voice was soft but full of trust. I trust you, human. Her words hit him harder than he expected. Trust, it was a simple thing, yet powerful. He realized in that moment that he had chosen his path. There was no turning back. He would protect her, no matter the cost. Outside, the storm raged, but inside the shelter, two strangers sat in silence, their fates now bound together by a single choice. A choice that would change everything. Secrets in the firelight. The fire burned low, filling the shelter with a soft orange glow. Liara sat close to the warmth, her silver skin reflecting the flickering light. Daniel watched her quietly, his rifle resting nearby. For hours he had wrestled with questions, but now he needed answers. "Tell me the truth," he said firmly. "Why do they want you?" Liara lowered her eyes. Her hands trembled as she held the edge of the blanket tighter. For a moment, she didn't speak, only stared into the fire as if searching for courage. Then, slowly, she reached into the folds of her torn clothes and pulled out something small. It was a crystal, faintly glowing blue. The light pulsed gently, as though alive. Daniel frowned. He had seen crystals like this before, rare energy sources, worth more than gold. His commanders had always called them strategic resources, but never explained the full truth. "This," Liara whispered, "is the heart of my people. We are bonded with these crystals since birth. They grow with us, connected to our life. Without them, we fade." Daniel's eyes widened. He leaned forward. "You mean, these are not just minerals? They're alive?" Liara nodded weakly. "Humans came. They wanted the crystals, not caring they were part of us. They tore them from my people, leaving them to die." Her voice broke, her glowing eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "My mother, she tried to protect me. She gave me this crystal and told me to run, but I saw them drag her away." Daniel's stomach twisted. He had followed orders without question for years, believing they were bringing peace. But this was something else, a massacre disguised as war. He clenched his fists, his voice was low. "If command finds out you carry this, they'll kill you without hesitation." Liara looked at him with fear. "You will give me to them?" Daniel shook his head instantly. "No," he said firmly. "I won't, but you must trust me completely. If they even suspect you're here, we're both finished." Silence filled the room, broken only by the crackling fire and the storm outside. Liara studied him, as if weighing his soul. Then, slowly, she placed the crystal into his hand. Daniel hesitated. Its glow warmed his palm, not like fire, but like a heartbeat. For a strange moment, he felt something, an echo of her fear, her pain, and her desperate hope. He almost dropped it, startled. "It is part of me," Liara whispered. "I share it with you because you gave me warmth. You gave me life when I had nothing left." Daniel looked at her, speechless. He had fought battles, faced death, but nothing had ever shaken him like this simple act of trust. Before he could respond, the shelter's scanner beeped faintly. Daniel's heart jumped. He rushed to the console. Motion again, closer this time. Not patrol soldiers, but something heavier, moving through the snow. He turned back to Liara, his expression grim. "Hide now." She quickly slid under the cot, pulling the blanket down to cover her glowing skin. Daniel grabbed his rifle, his eyes fixed on the door. The heavy footsteps drew nearer, louder. A shadow fell across the small window. The door rattled, then opened slowly. Daniel's finger tightened on the trigger, but instead of soldiers, a drone hovered in, its red eye scanning the room. "Unit Gamma 12, the metallic voice announced. "Routine sweep, identify yourself." Daniel stepped forward, his voice calm, though his pulse raced. "Captain Daniel, Patrol Division." The drone hovered closer, its sensors sweeping over the room. Daniel's muscles tensed, praying it wouldn't notice the faint warmth under the cot. Unregistered heat source detected. The drone's voice droned. Daniel's blood froze. In an instant, he grabbed a metal pot from the fire, tossing it against the wall. The hot metal clanged loudly, spilling embers across the floor. The drone shifted, its sensors distracted by the sudden flare of heat. Daniel cursed loudly, stomping the flames out. "Faulty readings," he snapped. "Storm interference again. You want to write me up for fire accidents too?" The drone buzzed, processing, then finally retreated toward the door. "Report filed. Remain alert," it said, before floating back into the storm. Daniel exhaled sharply, sweat on his brow. He lowered his rifle and looked toward the cot. Liara crawled out slowly, her eyes wide. "They almost found me," she whispered, her voice trembling. Daniel nodded. sitting heavily on the chair. Yes, and next time, I may not be able to trick them. He looked at her seriously. You understand now? If I protect you, I stand against my own people. Liara's voice was soft, but steady. Then why do it? Daniel stared into the fire, his jaw tightened. Because someone has to remember what it means to be human. For the first time, Liara smiled faintly, weak but real. She reached out, placing her glowing hand gently over his. Then I will remember too, she said. The fire flickered between them, two strangers from different worlds, bound by a secret that could destroy them both. But in that small shelter, in the storm's heart, a fragile bond grew stronger. The bond grows. The storm outside refused to end. For 2 days, Daniel's shelter shook under the weight of ice and wind. Inside, the small fire burned low, casting a circle of warmth in a world of deathly cold. Liara sat wrapped in the heavy cloak Daniel had given her. Her violet eyes followed him quietly as he cleaned his weapon and checked the sensors again and again. She said little, but her silence was not emptiness. It was waiting. At last, Daniel broke the stillness. You cannot stay here forever. They will keep searching, and if they find you, his voice trailed off, heavy with unspoken danger. Liara lowered her gaze. Her pale fingers touched the crystal resting against her chest. If I leave, I die in the storm. If I stay, I put you in danger, either way. I am a burden. Daniel looked at her sharply. You're not a burden, he said firmly. You're alive. That's reason enough. Her lips trembled as if those simple words struck something deep. Slowly, she lifted her hand, reaching toward the fire. Her skin glowed faintly, the crystal inside her chest pulsing with it. We are taught. Warmth is life. Without it, no one survives. You gave me yours, so now I owe you mine. Daniel frowned. What do you mean? She hesitated, then placed her hand gently against his. At once, he felt it. A strange current flowing from her skin into his. Not painful, but like heat spreading directly into his bones. His breath caught. He looked at her in shock. It is our way, she whispered. Bond through touch. Share our strength. I give you warmth as you gave me. Daniel pulled his hand back slightly, unsettled, yet he could not deny the feeling. It was more than warmth. It was connection, as if for a moment he had seen through her eyes, felt the echo of her fear, her loneliness, her fragile hope. He cleared his throat. That's dangerous. If anyone sees this, they'll think it's some kind of trick. Liara tilted her head, her glowing eyes watching him. But it is truth. You feel it, don't you? Daniel looked away, hiding the unease in his chest. He was a soldier, trained to keep walls around his heart. Yet with her, those walls were breaking. The scanner beeped suddenly. Daniel snapped to his feet, checking the screen. This time it was not soldiers, but supply drones passing overhead. Still, his pulse quickened. The net was tightening. Liara's voice was soft. You risk everything for me, why? Daniel turned to her, his jaw hard. Because if I don't, no one else will. And because, he paused, struggling with words he had never spoken. Because you asked for warmth, not power, that makes you worth saving. For the first time since he found her, Liara smiled. Not faintly, but truly. Her eyes softened, glowing brighter. She leaned closer to the fire, whispering words in her own language. The sound was like music, gentle but filled with sorrow. What did you say? Daniel asked quietly. She looked at him. It means, protector of my heart. My people use it for the one who gives life when all else is lost. Daniel's chest tightened. He had been called many things. Captain, soldier, killer, but never that, and the weight of it felt heavier than all his medals. The night deepened. Daniel dozed lightly in his chair, his rifle within reach. He woke once to find Liara watching him, her hand stretched just close enough to the fire to cast a soft glow. Sleep, she whispered. I will keep the fire alive. For a soldier who trusted no one, it was strange to close his eyes with an alien keeping watch. But he did, and in the silence of the storm, something unseen grew between them. Not command, not duty, but trust. Yet beyond the walls of the small shelter, danger moved closer, patrols widened, drones circled longer, command grew restless, and in the dark, whispers spread. There was still an alien survivor out there, carrying something powerful. Daniel didn't know it yet, But his choice to protect Liara had already set his path against his own people. The storm outside was only the beginning. A greater storm was coming, one no fire could hold back. And in its heart, 2 lives, 1 human, 1 alien, were about to be tested beyond warmth, beyond survival, into something neither had dared to imagine: truth and betrayal. The storm finally began to break. Pale lights spread across the frozen wasteland, revealing shapes buried in ice. Daniel stood outside the shelter, his cloak whipping in the wind. His eyes scanned the horizon, but his thoughts were far darker than the sky. Inside, Liara sat near the fire, holding the crystal close to her chest. The faint glow pulsed with her heartbeat. She watched Daniel's shadow move in and out of the firelight, sensing the weight pressing on him. When he came back inside, his face was tense. He placed a small ration pack in front of her. "Eat," he said simply. She unwrapped it carefully, her trembling hands betraying hunger, but she paused before taking a bite. "Something troubles you," she whispered. Daniel sat down heavily, staring into the fire. "I went through the latest command updates," he said slowly. "They didn't just want the crystals. They knew your people were bonded to them. They knew taking them meant death, and they ordered it anyway." Liara's breath caught. Her eyes shimmered with tears. So, it was not a mistake. Daniel's jaw tightened. No mistake. No misunderstanding. It was slaughter, approved and signed by men who wear the same uniform I wear. He looked at his hands, scarred from years of service. "And I carried out their orders. I believe them." Liara reached forward, placing her small, glowing hand over his. "You did not kill me," she said softly. "You chose different. That means you are not like them." But Daniel shook his head, guilt heavy in his chest. "How many did I overlook? How many lives ended because I followed orders instead of asking questions?" Silence stretched between them, broken only by the crackle of fire. Then Liara leaned closer, her voice trembling but steady. "We cannot change the past, but we can protect what is left." Daniel met her gaze, and for the first time, he felt something shift inside him, like a soldier's oath breaking and a new one forming. Not to command, not to war, but to her. Before he could speak, the shelter alarm blared. A red light flashed across the console. Daniel rushed to check it. His blood ran cold. Human patrols were approaching, directly toward their location. "They've tracked us," Daniel muttered. His hands tightened on his rifle. His mind raced. Someone must have reported unusual energy signals. Maybe the crystal. Liara's voice shook. "They will kill me if they find me." Daniel turned sharply. "Not if I stop them." But before he could form a plan, the door banged open. A figure stepped inside. Sergeant Cole, his rifle raised. Behind him, 2 soldiers entered, weapons ready. Daniel's pulse spiked. His hand moved to his weapon, but Cole's eyes stopped him. "Easy. Captain, we don't want blood." Yet, Cole's smirk was cold. Command was right. "You've been hiding something, and here it is." Liara gasped, clutching the cloak tighter around her. Daniel stepped in front of her instinctively. "She's not a threat," he said firmly. "She's a survivor, nothing more." Cole laughed. "Survivor? She's carrying one of those crystals, isn't she? That makes her more valuable than you, Daniel." His voice hardened. "Step aside. Captain, that's an order." Daniel's heart pounded. Every instinct screamed at him. Obey or die. Yet his body didn't move. He stood like a wall, his rifle ready. "No," he said flatly. Cole's smirk faded. "Careful, Daniel. Treason isn't forgiven." Daniel's eyes locked with his. "Neither is murder." For a tense moment, the room seemed to freeze. Soldiers aimed rifles. Liara clutched the crystal. The firelight flickered. Then Liara whispered, "Daniel." In that single sound, he made his choice. He raised his rifle, aiming not at Cole's chest, but at the lantern above. A sharp shot shattered the light, plunging the room into sudden darkness. Chaos erupted. Soldiers cursed. Blinded by the fire's glow, Daniel grabbed Liara's hand, pulling her toward the back exit. Bullets sparked against the metal walls. Daniel fired blindly, forcing them back. They burst into the storm, snow slashing their faces. Daniel dragged her forward, his voice harsh but steady. "Run. Don't stop." Behind them, Cole's furious shout carried through the wind. "Daniel, you're finished. Both of you." Liara stumbled, but Daniel caught her, holding her close as they ran into the blizzard. The storm swallowed them, hiding their trail. For now, they were safe, but Daniel knew the truth. He had crossed the line completely. There was no going back to his command, no safety left in the world he once trusted. He had betrayed his own soldiers, and in their eyes, he was now the enemy. But when he looked at Liara, shivering but alive, her violet eyes burning with both fear and hope, he knew he had made the only choice he could live with. And somewhere deep inside, he realized something else. This was no longer just about survival. It was about standing against everything wrong in his world, even if it cost him everything. A human heart tested. The blizzard swallowed them whole. Snow and ice tore at their skin. Every step felt like dragging chains. Daniel's arm wrapped firmly around Liara as he pushed through the storm. Behind them, faint shouts and distant flashes of rifles chased across the night. Liara stumbled again, her legs too weak to carry her. Daniel lifted her without hesitation, cradling her close against his chest. Her faint glow lit his face, her voice breaking through the howling wind. "You should leave me. Save yourself." Daniel's jaw tightened. His breath came in heavy clouds. "Not happening," he said through gritted teeth. "I didn't risk everything to throw you away now." The storm roared louder, as if testing his words. Daniel pressed forward, his boots sinking deep into the snow. His visor flickered with warnings. Low energy, critical temperature drop. His own body was nearing its limit. At last, they found a hollow between jagged cliffs. Daniel pushed inside. Shielding Liara with his cloak, he set her down against the frozen rock, her face pale, her crystal dim. She looked at him, eyes wet with fear. "You will die if you keep this path. Why sacrifice for me?" Daniel crouched in front of her, his hands gripping her shoulders. His voice was low but fierce. "Because you are alive. Because you deserve to live. Because someone has to show the universe that humanity isn't just cruelty and greed." Liara blinked, tears forming. Her trembling hand rose, pressing the glowing crystal against his chest. He felt a sudden surge. Warmth, energy flowing into him. His breath steadied, his body fueled. Her voice trembled. "I give you my life bond. It will keep you strong. But if I give too much, I may fade." Daniel grabbed her wrist gently, shaking his head. "No, don't risk yourself for me." Liara met his eyes, determination burning in her glow. "You risk everything for me already. Let me stand beside you." For a moment, neither spoke, only the storm howling around them. Then Daniel nodded slowly, pressing his forehead against hers. "Then we survive together, or not at all." Suddenly, a sharp mechanical whine cut through the storm. Daniel jerked his head up. A patrol drone hovered above the cliffs, its red eye scanning the snow. He cursed under his breath. "They're still hunting us." Liara clutched his arm. "If they see the crystal, they will call more." Daniel's mind raced. He spotted an overhang above the hollow. Fragile ice clinging to the cliffside. A plan sparked in his head. Risky, but their only chance. He stood quickly, pulling Liara close. "Stay behind me, no matter what happens." The drone dipped lower, scanning the heat signatures. Its metallic voice boomed. "Unregistered life form detected, alerting command." Before it could finish, Daniel raised his rifle and fired at the ice above. A thunderous crack split the air. Tons of snow and ice broke free, crashing down. The drone's voice cut off in static as it vanished under the avalanche. The ground shook, snow rising like smoke. Liara gasped, holding tight to Daniel as he shielded her. When the noise settled, silence fell again. Only the wind remained. Breathing hard, Daniel lowered his rifle, his arms still wrapped around her. He whispered, "One danger down, too many left." Liara's eyes shone brighter now, not from fear, but from something else. "You fight like a soldier," she said softly, "but your heart is not like theirs." Daniel looked at her, exhaustion etched on his face. "Maybe because I finally have something worth fighting for." Her cheeks flushed faint silver, her gaze steady. "Then I will fight too. I will not let you stand alone." He studied her, this fragile girl who had somehow become his strength. He realized the truth then. This was no longer a mission, it was a vow. But in the distance, faint lights flickered through the storm. Human search teams, relentless and closing in. Daniel tightened his grip on his rifle, his voice a low promise. "They'll keep coming. They won't stop. But as long as I breathe, they won't touch you. Liara pressed closer, her crystal pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. Then I believe you. Human, she whispered. And in that frozen wasteland, hunted and outnumbered, their bond became unbreakable. Two lives tied not by blood or command, but by a choice born of warmth, trust, and sacrifice. The storm would not last forever, but Daniel knew a greater war awaited, a war not for survival alone, but for truth. And this time, he was ready to fight not as a soldier of orders, but as a man who had given his heart. Warmth beyond survival. The storm began to fade. The sky cleared enough for pale starlight to break through, revealing the endless white wasteland. Daniel and Liara sheltered in a frozen cave, hidden deep between cliffs. For a moment, the world was quiet, almost peaceful, but Daniel knew the silence would not last. He checked his rifle, every part cold to the touch. His visor showed faint signals approaching. Multiple squads, closing in fast. Command was determined. They would not stop until Liara was taken. Liara sat near the small fire Daniel had built, her crystal glowing faintly. Her strength had returned little by little, but her eyes carried fear. She looked at him, whispering, "They will not let us go. You cannot fight them all." Daniel crouched beside her, his voice steady but firm. "Maybe not, but I can buy you time." Her hand shot out, clutching his wrist. "No, you cannot leave me. I will not live if you fall." Daniel's gaze softened. He brushed a strand of silver hair from her face. "Liara, I swore to protect you, even if it costs me everything. That's the only way I can live with myself." Tears shimmered in her violet eyes. "You gave me warmth when I had nothing. I cannot let you give your life now. Let me share my strength with you again." Daniel shook his head. "You already gave me enough. I won't let you fade because of me." Before she could answer, the cave shook with the echo of boots outside. Voices shouted. Rifles clicked into readiness. The soldiers had arrived. Daniel stood, pulling Liara behind him. He aimed his rifle at the entrance, heart pounding. "Stay behind me, no matter what happens." The first soldier entered, but Daniel fired before the man could even speak. The blast echoed through the cave. The fight had begun. Dozens stormed in, red beams of their visors cutting through the dark. Daniel moved like a man possessed, each shot precise, each step deliberate. He fought not for orders, not for medals, but for the trembling life behind him. Liara clutched her crystal, whispering in her language. Her glow spread faintly across the walls, strengthening Daniel as he moved. He felt her warmth, not just against his skin, but inside his soul. But the enemy was endless. For every soldier he dropped, two more entered. Daniel was hit. First a graze on his arm, then a burning shot across his shoulder. His body weakened, his knees almost buckling. Liara cried out, rushing forward. "No." She pressed her crystal against his chest, pouring her energy into him. Daniel gasped as strength surged back, but her glow dimmed dangerously. "Stop," he shouted, catching her trembling hand. "You'll die if you give more." Her voice shook, but her eyes burned with resolve. "Then let us die together, but not as prey, not as slaves, as one." The soldiers prepared for a final charge, their rifles raised. Daniel pulled Liara close, wrapping his arms around her. His voice was hoarse but unbreakable. "If this is the end, then we face it together." At that moment, the crystal in Liara's chest flared brighter than ever before. A wave of light burst through the cave, blinding the soldiers. The ground shook. The air crackled with raw energy. The invaders screamed, dropping their weapons as the surge of warmth and light forced them back. Daniel shielded Liara, but even he felt the power flowing through them both. It was not just energy, it was life. It was her soul bound with his. When the light faded, the cave was silent again. Soldiers lay unconscious in the snow outside, their weapons scattered. The storm had swallowed the rest. Only Daniel and Liara remained standing, their bodies weak but alive. Daniel looked down at her, his breath ragged. You saved us." Liara's glow dimmed to a soft flicker, her voice faint but filled with peace. "No, we saved us, together." He caught her as she nearly collapsed. Pulling her close, he wrapped his cloak around both of them, holding her against his chest. Her crystal pulsed faintly in rhythm with his heartbeat. For the first time in his life, Daniel felt no orders, no chains, only choice, and he chose her, not as a mission, not as a burden, but as a partner. He whispered softly, his voice carrying more than words, "You're safe now, as long as I breathe." Liara's lips curved into the faintest smile, her eyes closing as she rested in his arms. "Then I am safe forever," she whispered. The night passed, the fire burned low, and in the heart of that frozen world, a human and an alien shared more than warmth. They shared a bond stronger than war, stronger than fear. It was the kind of warmth no storm could ever take away.